I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe. Please hit like. Please subscribe. Please hit like. You got to do things 3 times. Please subscribe and please hit like. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. I'm so close, so close. I'll even do impressions. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. All right, that was pretty bad. Anyway, so today we're going to be stripping down an Admiral. No, this is not an Admiral. This is a Regina. It's a Regina. Anyway, today we're going to be stripping down a Regina pocket watch. And this Regina pocket watch was provided to me by an old friend, I'll say, and his name is Tim. And it says Regina on here. And it says Regina because it's not from Regina. It's a brand name that Omega gave these watches, watch movements. They shipped these lower end Omegas to Canada, and then the jeweler, Mr. H. Downing, would basically take this, get the dial scribed with H. Downing from Moosomin, Saskatchewan. I love that name, Moosomin. How come there's always a moose in the names up there, like Moose Jaw, Moosomin? A lot of moose names up there in Saskatchewan. I don't know if there's a lot of moose up there. I think they're all in Newfoundland. Anyway, so he'd have that put on the dial, and then he'd be selling these watches. So this is a Canadian A pocket watch, A, and I think the Americans all there think we say A all the time, A. I do and I don't, A. So this is in pretty hard condition. The balance on this is broken. And how can I tell that the balance is broken? Well, other than using ESP or ESPN, if I grab the balance like this and do this, it's wobbly. So the balance staff, the pivots on the end are likely broken. There is a chance that those pivots are still in the jewel holes. So you really have to watch out for that. I did that a long time ago. I tried to install a balance where I forgot to get the balance, the staff out of the jewel holes. It was an amateur move, I'm telling you, amateur. So you got to check the jewel holes for that staff after you've cleaned the watch and you're pegging out the holes. Check the holes, the jewel holes, for the leftover balance staff pivots. The pivots could still be in there. So this is not a high end. I think this is a 7 jewel watch. Let me look down. Yeah, 7 jewels, but it is adjusted to 2 positions, which is strange. Usually you don't have the adjustment to any positions when it's that many jewels. So, well, look at this. I'm fogged out. Mr. Gorbachev, take down that wall. Nancy and I. That's my best Reagan. Anyway, and it sounds exactly like Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day. See, there you go. Same guy. And they both made Westerns. There you go. So anyway, that's the watch there that I'm going to be tearing down in a few seconds as soon as I shut up and start tearing it down. One thing I wanted to show you is that my friend couldn't get the case open because it is a flip over case. Don't you love that, eh? So it's a silver nickel flip over case, and I will polish this case up. So I'm going to be polishing the case on my buffing machine. It's in hard condition, as you can see. I think I can get this looking really good again, and I'd like to do that for him. So I'll get this down to mint condition. The bail on it is still good. So that's the bail there. I've made bails before, by the way, and you make them out of, I made one out of coat hanger, a wire, and it's actually the right kind of metal and consistency of metal to be able to make a bail. So anyway, that's the flip over case, and when you open the watch in the flip over case, you've got to make sure the crown is pulled out because you will snap the stem off and cause all kinds of other problems. The other thing is that this watch has a glass crystal here, and it kind of doesn't seem to fit the bezel where it's supposed to be. So I might try to reinstall the glass crystal, or I may put a plastic crystal in there instead. So a different crystal. Anyway, we'll see what I do. Anyway, so this should be a little bit of a teardown adventure. I'm going to strip this watch down and get it ready for cleaning. And then the next thing I'm going to do after I've cleaned this watch is I'm going to try to repivot this balance. So you're going to see some repivoting. So this is as opposed to making a new balance staff or trying to buy a balance staff for this, which I think is going to be impossible. So I'm going to try to repivot it. The worst case scenario is I can't repivot it and I have to make a new balance staff, which I've done before. I haven't made one in a little while, so but I have time now. So semi-retired, let's say semi-retired. And I've got my summertime hat on right now. It makes you look old or sophisticated. I'm not sure which, but I am the most interesting man. Dosaki. Anyway, that's it. Let's get on with the job. Just before we start, just to let you know, what I'm using here is an Andonstar digital microscope. So this is a digital microscope, and I've got it pretty far away right now, but I can get in super close. So, and I'm going to do that with the balance and pivot after I strip the watch down. So let's first strip the watch down and get on with it, to it and at it. So I'll try to leave as much of a continuous stream as I can, even though the old continuous stream cops would tell me don't do that, because people like to see things every 4 seconds. So I have to let the power down on this watch. That's the first thing I need to do if there is power on the watch. I don't even know if the mainspring is in operation on this watch. I'll just make an assumption that it is. Yeah, I can feel a bit of power there. So, and to let the power down the watch, I just use a bench key. Without a bench key, you're nothing. So you need to have a bench key. And just press on the bench key like this, and then do this. And sometimes I take the face off the watch first, but in this case I'm just going to let the power down like this and keep friction on the bench key as the power lets down on the watch, so you don't have the mainspring flipping like crazy. It wants to do that right now, by the way. And I've got the bench key jammed into the back of my hand, so it has a hard time spinning freely. Frinning spreely. There's a little bit of frinning speely there. So I think that's it. Oh no, there's more. Look at that. Let me just wind it this way a little and then back a bit. I think that's as far as it's going to go, folks. Hopefully, that's it. So that's done. Now I want to take off the, take out, as we say up in Canada here, take out the dial. So this should have dial screws on it, and you can see them. There's one dial screw right here, Jerry. It's funny, somebody actually thought my name was Jerry. It was pretty funny. But these dial screws have been in here for a million years, so I just want to be very careful when I take these out. I don't want to strip them. And that is turning, which is good. But I need a smaller screwdriver. That is a black, and I'm going to go to yellow and check the tip of my screwdriver. I dressed some of these screwdrivers the other day, so they should be in pretty good condition. There's the yellow. So that's, and what I do is I'll take the dial screws out and then I'll put them back. I'll loosen them off and then I'll tighten them up. So when they're in the cleaning machine, I don't lose the dial screws. There we go. Now, this watch may never have been worked on. It's a very good possibility, and I can tell by the difficulty taking out these screws that if it was ever worked on, it was probably a long time ago, 200 years ago, because I just put a lot of torque on that screw to get it moving. And let me get this under here like this again, and then I just put my screwdriver underneath here and should be able to lift the dial up. And look at that, I got 3 legs here, which is good, dial feet, and they're in good condition. And this is a C410, in case you're curious, the old C410. And just put this out of the way, right? Gonna put all these things out of the way. And it has a dial washer, which is nice, and that dial washer keeps the hour wheel down. It's slightly beveled, the dial washer. If you look at that, it's kind of in a U shape. Anyway, it pushes up, which it pushes down on the hour wheel, and that ensures that the hour wheel engages with the pinion of the minute wheel. I should be able to lift that right up like that and get that out of the way. And this is what this looks like. Let me just look and show you as I strip this thing down so you can see it. And I will take out hoser. This is the minute wheel here. Sometimes I'll leave these mechanisms in place. I should be able to pull this straight up. If I can't pull it straight up, I have a cannon pinion remover. So I'll grab this like that and pull straight up with this. And if I'm lucky, it comes out, and it does. There it is. This is the cannon pinion. It has to be just tight enough so that when you wind the watch, there's no issue. But when you set the watch, there's just enough friction between it and the pivot of the center wheel to allow you to turn the hands. So you can tighten the cannon pinion. I've done that in my staking set before. And you can actually loosen the cannon pinion by putting a pin in there and just opening it up just a bit. I've done that before. I've seen people with cannon pinions, to tighten them, put a hair in there. I think I did that a long time ago with an old British watch I had. And I just took my last hair and I put that in there. As you can see from my videos in my head, there's not a lot left. So, and these pivots, obviously, you got to stay away from this one right here, because that's the fourth wheel, and that's where the pivot sticks out on the fourth wheel. So this is what I need to do now is check my iMessages from my wife, who's written me. So I'm going to get out my Myers number 58 movement holder. Yes, the number 58 not the number 57 or 56. And I have to take these jobby doohickeys out of it and put in these jobby doohickeys, because these are the right size for a pocket watch. And you slip these in. There's a spring down here on this movement holder, and you slip them in like that, and sideways, and just do that. It tucks into place. So I don't want to admit to you folks out there, but I got a few of these movement holders. They're worth a lot of money now, so please don't rob me. Anyway, you'll have to get through my security system, which has got lasers and everything. So I'll just flip the movement around and put this in the movement holder. Pay attention where that pivot is, although it won't come into play anyway. So, but what I'll do is I'll align this, because I'm taking the wheels off first here. So I'll align it like this. And when I tighten this, there's a button on the side, as you can see, and I can tighten that like this. And of course that didn't work. Put that in like this. Now I tighten it. And then once I've tightened this using this button as a first step, then I just turn this here. And in the Myers number 58 movement holder, there's an internal spring. I think it's on this side here. And it pushes against here, this knurled crown. And when you turn this, you're not tightening this directly. You're tightening the spring. And the spring is tightening the movement. It's just a thing of beauty. This thing was so well engineered. And this is it here. This is a Myers number 58 movement holder. You turn that around here so you can read it. It's your third hand. So in case you're concerned where your third hand is, that's it, your third hand. So, and my wife would tell me that she's got two hands and I've got two, but if you add up her hands and my hands, you still end up with two hands. Oh yeah, nice. Nothing better than self-deprecating humor. Is that the right term? As a technical person, I have to watch what I say, right? So here we go. I don't have gloves on right now because I'll be cleaning this watch. One thing I need to do is get rid of my Apple titanium watch, because it's so darn big. When I put my arm down, I can't see a damn thing. So this is the Apple titanium watch, and I got it set for some pretty cool stuff. I keep going the wrong way though. Let me see if I can do that again. Turn that off. There we go. That's pretty cool, right? 45% battery. It's Friday, 21st. It's 83 degrees out. It was 83 degrees this morning when I checked, so it's obviously not giving. My beats per minute are 94. So excited about being here. That's what that's all about. 94 beats per minute. So Anyway, this watch, 7 joule adjusted to 2 positions. Can anybody guess what those positions are? I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say, but I'd like you to guess. So guess what those positions are, please. So I got to, these screws are on so friggin' tight. I am very concerned about this watch and the screws. And the reason why is because it's been in the land of friggin', oh yeah, this is like, I'm a little concerned about busting the screw heads on this thing. I'm even to the degree where I'm thinking I might just soak this overnight in alcohol or something. I normally wouldn't do that, but I can't seem to get these screws opening here, so this is not good. And that is, this is an old watch that hasn't been serviced in a million years. Oh, there, I got that screw off, so that's good. That's a positive because I can actually remove this plate without removing this screw and then put the whole darn thing through the wash machine. What I was worried about is the stripping the screw head off of this screw here, which would not be a good thing. So this will allow me to progress. So there. I say so a lot. So what, right? Let me see if I can raise this up a little bit. There we go. It popped up a bit, which might mean there's just a little bit of spring left. And sometimes these springs in here will not remove. There is a chance that it could break or something, and getting a replacement for Omega made spring like this could be almost impossible. The other thing is that this may turn the other way, like the opposite direction, and instead of and really I can't tell because it's soldered in there so nicely. Oh, there we go. I did it. So this is not righty-tighty, it's righty-loosey. On the Seiko watches that I was working on the other day, they do 3 lines in the watch. You see 3 lines across this wheel. This over here is the ratchet wheel. This is the crown wheel, I believe it's called that. And this wheel, they have 3 lines on it on Seiko to tell you that when you unscrew it, do it in the opposite direction, right? So don't do it in the normal direction. I'm going to try to do a continuous feed on this video, which is a little bit tough, but doable. And there's the inside like that. Pretty simple mechanism. Like this. And now when I remove the plate screws, I'm going to very carefully see if I can crank these things around. Okay, that's not too bad. And unlike most watchmakers, I guess like most watchmakers, I'll remove these screws one at a time. And I'll keep these screws kind of paired up with the actual plate. I'm having to put a lot of pressure on my screwdriver today to get these things down. So one value of the Myers number 58 movement holder is that I can put a lot of pressure on the side and this thing won't rock. And the reason why, if you look at this angle here, these little things here, which are also thingamajobby doohickeys. These little V's here are designed that when this movement slips in, they slip into that V, and that V holds the movement from popping up, which is really good, which means when I put pressure on the movement on this side, it's not going to pop up on the other side, which happens in movements. I'm going to take out the case screw here because it's in the way, and I'm going to take the other one out as well. And I have a feeling this watch is going to make my mat all dirty. I should have put in a secondary mat for this because it's going to be, I'm just going to blow it after, see if I can just get rid of the dust and dirt just by blowing down on it. So that's that, and then another that on the side. So just remove this screw here. Yeah, okay, that's not too bad. So far so good. I was able to get rid of the screws I was worried about. And there's the third screw here, and now I should be, and also on these watches, you'll see a little tiny groove right there. That groove, the intent of that groove is to put your screwdriver in there and then twist it. So you put your screwdriver in and twist it like that. It'll pop the movement plate up. There's another groove in the back right here. And you do the exact same thing in that groove. You put your screwdriver in like that and you twist it. And that moves the plate up. And then you can put your tweezers in like this and then lift the complete plate up like that. And then turn it around, and that is the plate for that wheel train. So I'm going to put that plate down and out of the way. I still can't remove the center wheel because this plate's in the way. I can slip out the mainspring from this, so I'll do that. And I'm going to have to take the mainspring out of the watch, and maybe I'll show you how I walk it out. It's always a challenge taking a mainspring out because you know that you have to put it back in again, and it's going to be a job and a half, and it might be hard, and there might be problems. You don't know, but I'll do that job after as well. Now here is when I always take a photo of the movement, just because sometimes these movements have very unique setting mechanisms. So take a photo. You even heard that cha-cha-ching sound of the photo being taken. So that's that part. And now I'll just remove this plate here, which hopefully, again, I got to use 2 hands to turn these screws because these have been in for 300 years. This watch, I think, is early 1911, which is quite a few years ago. More than 100 years ago when this person got the watch. I'm not sure if my buddy Tim's dad, he's not that old, so this had to be his father's watch, perhaps. So that's a lot of history. A lot of history. And I might be able to take this out, I'm not sure. Sometimes you can just remove it like this, which I can. There we go. And put that aside. Now, other watchmakers, sometimes the watchmaker will remove these various parts, and sometimes they won't. I'm going to have a quick look at this. I'm kind of here and there on that. I know there's a spring down here that I don't want to deal with, but I'll have a look at it. So that's dangerous. So again, you can see these little grooves on the bottom. There's one groove right here that I can use to pop this up, and there's another groove on the side right there, and that'll just pop the plate up. The important part when you're removing plates is to move them straight up like that as much as you can, and that ensures that you don't bust the pivot on the plate, because you bust the pivot on the plate, it's game over, folks. So when I do watch work, I usually remove the balance first, but I wanted to show you a bit of the balance before I remove it. So I always put the wheels with the longer shaft on the wheel. I place that, I turn it around like this and place it down like that. So the other technique you need to figure out is how to hold your tweezers and spin them around with the part in your tweezers. There's the 4th wheel, and so I'm keeping a good eye on the 4th wheel pivot right now to make sure I don't screw that up, but I'm able to turn this around like this. And I'm really, I did a video on how to use your tweezers and how to hold on to a part while you're doing that. So you can watch that video later on if you want. Just look it up. Probably something to do with tweezers and my name. So there we go. And this is the escapement wheel. I remember calling it the escapement once, and someone gave me shit. So I said, okay, I'll call it the right thing then. So there's the hairspring and the balance here. And this is touchy stuff. There's 2 ways of removing it. I can remove the balance cock. A balance cock is when it has 1 screw in it, and it comes over like this. If it's a bridge, it has 2 screws with the balance going up through the center, and this is 1 screw, so it's called a balance cock. So here, this goes all the way back here. This is amazing. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So you look at that, this is where the stud is. It's all the way back here, which is pretty amazing. I think I'll take a photo of that too, because I don't know if I've ever seen the balance stud being that far back. That is really far back. So I'm going to take another photo of that as I yammer away, and I zoom in on my iPhone and take a photo. There we go. And just to prove to you that I took a photo, there's the photo. So I've got a photo of that now. And I believe the better thing to do here is to loosen that screw right there, and loosen the screw and push the stud out, and the hairspring should drop right through the regulator pins. And then I can have a look at that and see what it looks like. So let me just get in close. Now again, I'm using an airy loop. If you're wondering, if you're curious about the loop I have on, it's called an airy loop. This thing hasn't moved in 300 years. I'm being very careful. It should be enough to take the pressure off of that, and I'll just push this down. There we go. And then I want to look inside, in where the hairspring is, to see if this hairspring is caught with the regulator here. And I don't think it is, but I'm looking at this on the regulator pins on both sides, and they have a fat side and a thin side. So it's kind of a strange configuration here for the regulator pins. I'm not sure if I can zoom in on that, but I probably can. But if I just show you it like this, and then I'll bring my camera up, and I'm going to do this live now, so it's going to get a bit fuzzy for a second. But I'll bring this up a bit, and then I'll zoom it and see if I can get it like this. So there's the hairspring and the regulator, the old hairspring and regulator. There it is there. And there it is there. So when I look at that up close, I've got to get that hairspring out between the regulator pins. And you can see that there's a fat one and a thin one. In fact, there may be the intent of taking this apart and then turning that peg, the outer peg, with a screwdriver. That may be how that's done. So I'm going to have a very close look at that to make sure they do it the right way. So I've got to zoom in again here for your pleasure. I may have to cut away for a second just to look at this. So I don't screw this up. I'm going to cut away. I lied. So now I can absolutely see that the intent for this watch was actually to turn this around and then turn that first stud, the stud right here that's going down to release the hairspring. So what I'm going to do is, I think the technique I'm going to use, let me zoom in again, is I'm going to grab the hairspring and let me see here. There we go. It's good enough for now. I'm going to grab the balance and the balance cock as one group, and then turn the whole thing around after I loosen the screw here. So let's loosen this screw. And I don't think anybody has ever accused me of having a loose screw. Please enjoy my humor and share it with others. There we go. Take that screw out like this, and now I think in the back, just like the other parts of the watch, as you can see, there's a slight groove back there that you should be able to put a screwdriver in to leverage this up, right? Now the screwdriver is a bit big for that, and this probably is a bit small, yeah. But once I've levered it up a little tiny bit, I can get the other side too. There we go. And now I'm going to lift the whole thing up with the balance and everything. See if I can remove the whole thing. So there we go. And I want to make sure that I've got a grip on it all when I turn it around. Let's just have a look at that regulator to see what that looks like. So let me just move that back a bit, and I may do a close-up on this. Alright, so this is about as close as a close-up I want to be. So if you look at this, I actually have to turn this to get it out of the way so that it frees up the hairspring from being removed. So I'm going to put my finger on it like this and press down, and I'm going to see if I get my screwdriver in here and turn this. You see that? And that opens up that hairspring to be able to remove the balance, the hairspring, and the stud. So there's the stud there, and this is an old watch because this hairspring is pinned into that stud. It's not glued in as it is in some watches. It's pinned in. So there's the mechanism right there, and you just sort of turn that, and it puts that hairspring it basically holds that hairspring, and there's a very small pin on the other side. So it's a pretty cool little way of doing it. So I'm going to have to look inside here to see what the situation is with the pivot on the balance. So I'll get this out of the way, and we're going to look at the balance now and see whether this balance has any pivot or not. Because if it doesn't have a pivot, it's likely, actually it's not in there. I'm looking through there, and you can see right through, and you can see air. If you look at that, you can see that there's no pivot in the hole. See if I go down there low. Can I see that? Yeah, need to get in closer, I think. So if I look at this watch and look at the pivots, I'm going to get a piece of Rodico to stand this thing up. There's what we're going to do. So we're going to take a piece of Rodico, flatten it out, and just stand it up, and then we'll be able to have a look at the pivots on either side. And let me grab this balance here, because I'm going to have to take the spring off of this anyway, right? So just take an old piece of Rodico, the old Rodico, and stand the balance up. I'm not pressing very hard because Rodico is pretty resilient for that. And get a little bit of light in here, and I'm going to just do a little bit of zooming, and you'll see there's the front, and yeah, there's definitely a pivot missing there. I'm trying to zoom to the right level so it gets, I think I got to go the other way, like that. And I zoom out with my camera and then zoom in. I'm getting used to this, folks, so bear with me. I should be cutting away so you don't get bored, right? So there we go. Now I can do fine zooming. So you can see that the pivot on this side is toast. It actually looks like it was re-pivoted once before. So because there seems to be, the taper of the balance doesn't look like it's tapered properly, but there's the balance. I'm going to strip that balance down too now. And there is, let me look on the other side, if I can turn that around and that be, yeah, and there we go. So the pivot is toast on both sides. So the pivot on this side is also El Crapo. So neither pivots are good on this balance, but the balance seems to be in pretty good shape, and the hairspring obviously needs to be removed. So we're going to just take that hairspring out right now. And so my technique for removing a hairspring from a balance is, this is the hairspring collet here, and I will first mark where the stud is on this side, so I have a reference point later on when I return that hairspring. So I usually use a red marker to mark that, and I'll just put a dot in there. I'm going to probably need to adjust it anyway for bead error later on. So there's the dot. That's not too bad. It's a little bit of a line there, but it's sort of in the center of that line, which is good. So now I know where it is. And I just need to slide these screwdrivers underneath. So what I do is I slide them low, and I'm always pressing down so I don't worry about harming the hairspring at all. And I go down like this again, and I keep the pressure down as I pivot these in the opposite direction. So I'm just twisting those in the opposite direction, and the hairspring will lift out like that nicely. So that's, and I grab the stud here and just move that out of the way. Let's see if I can do that. And there it is. There's the hairspring. And it looks like it's in pretty good condition. It's coiled nicely. Doesn't seem like there's a big problem with the hairspring. So I'm moving that way out of the way because I don't want the hairspring to be an issue. So there it is there. Now, when if and when I pivot this, I'm going to have to grab this in the lathe on both sides. So to pivot one side, then to repivot the other side. And as I'm looking at it, yeah, I think it's hard to tell whether these original pivots had a problem or not. So there it is there. So there is the impulse jewel, which looks really weird. It's triangular. I don't think I've ever seen a triangular impulse jewel. It's not round on one side, it's actually a triangle. So if you've seen a triangular impulse jewel, let me know. but the impulse jewel is in the opposite side of where my mark is for that for the stud, which is a good indicator, right? So, and it's actually at 90-degree angles to the arms, which is what you want. So can you actually see the triangle on that impulse jewel? Let me know if you can. I think you should be able to see it, right? It's clearly a triangle, which is nuts. So I don't think I've ever seen that before. Now, what I don't know here is if the safety roller here is attached to the roller table directly, or is it a separate safety roller? Because I'm going to have to take out the safety roller and punch that out, and I'm going to look at it closely here and see if it's one mechanism or two. It may be one. It looks as though it's one, but I'm going to take a look under the microscope of this to make sure that I know whether that's one part or two, because it could make a big difference on how this is removed. So we'll have a quick look at that. So this is so darn interesting. I'm going to put an additional lens on this and get super close. All right, so there is the edge of the roller table. Now I'm going to see if I can zoom myself in, and there we go. And there is the safety roller, which is part of the roller table, and zoom in just a bit more. And there you can see the end of the pivot on that side. See if I can shift this over cautiously. There we go. There's the old pivot, and it's stuck to the side of that. So if I zoom in just a bit more, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. There we go. So that's the roller table there. And there you go. That's it being machined, and there's the pivot right there. So that is pretty cool. That is a close-up of a close-up of this particular watch. That's why the repivoting of this. So this wasn't repivoted before, because as you can see, do you think I can put a screwdriver in the point? This would be very tricky. Let's see, can I put a screwdriver in the point here? Maybe. Don't know. Yeah, there we go. There's a screwdriver. So as you can see, there's the tip of my screwdriver. That this balance was actually cut. So it wasn't repivoted. It was cut. This is a very small screwdriver, by the way. So there we go. So that's a micro view of this, and I'm going to see if I can get a view of that triangular jewel. There's another picture of the pivot stuck to the side of the balance staff. And if I zoom in just a bit, there's the jewel, the impulse jewel, shellacked in place. It's hard to tell that it's triangular. I'm going to have to lay it down and show you what it looks like laid down. So there's the tip of the pivot, and as I zoom in here, and you see the jewel, the impulse jewel on the side, and it is a triangle. So that's odd. Usually you see the back part of that jewel being a semicircle. So in this case it's not. And it's perfectly aligned with the half moon on the safety roller. There's the half moon and the safety roller. And again, I've got the old pivot stuck to the side, the old pivot. So there's some pretty good close-ups of this particular balance. And you can see why these things are tough to work on when you're trying to fix a balance. So I'll have to clean off that old pivot on the top and then be able to repivot that. And I'll do my best to measure the jewel hole size to do that. And there we're back to the balance again, the picture of the balance, and you can see the size of this balance, pretty small, right? So, and the balance has got mean time screws and all kinds of temperature regulating screws and that kind of stuff here. What's odd here, and looking at the screw configuration, is that this screw here is way out, and its opposite screw, which would be this screw here, is not out. So that might be an issue. So I'm going to have to poise this balance after doing the work. But it looks as though the roller table here is one piece. So I should be able to punch that table out without a problem. So to punch the roller table out, I have this really cool old roller table remover. I'm not sure where I got that, but you slide the roller table in like this and be mindful of where the impulse jewel is. And there's two different fits for different sizes. and then I pick a punch that will go over the pivot. Now I'm not as concerned because the pivot's broken on this thing, so I'm not as concerned. So I'll pick a punch, and I've got my C1A1 mallet for the top of that, and I've got to get a little bit close to do this. So I put that over the top like so, and I got to make sure that is absolutely over the pivot. And now when I punch down, that should remove the bounce, so which it did. So it pushes the bounce staff down and leaves me with a very good condition roller with the jewel and everything all intact, which is kind of cool, right? So that is excellent. So that came out nicely. What I'll also do, if I only have a broken pivot on one side and I want to repivot, then what I would do is I would put a piece of Rodico underneath the base, so that and I'd flatten the Rodico out, and that way when the bounce drops down, it hits the Rodico and it doesn't hit the metal here, so to potentially ruin the pivot. But I've got bad pivots on both sides, so I'm not really that concerned. So that's why. So that's in. So the bounce is now stripped, and I can proceed to actually repivot the bounce. So I'll make another video doing that. I'm not going to do a repivoting and the strip down. It's just a little bit too much all at once. So that'll be done in the next video. But the watch is almost completely stripped down. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take out the mainspring. So here we have the mainspring barrel, and there are the teeth on the outside of the mainspring barrel. There's one side of it, and there's the other side, and I always take a photo of the mainspring barrel and the mainspring so I know which way it goes in. So let's just take a quick photo of this here. The old mainspring photo. There we go. And I'll turn that around and take a photo of the other side. Now within my iPhone, I actually create a directory for this watch. So this watch directory would be called Tim. So they provide a little groove here. I think this mainspring probably has a hook on the inside, because I don't see an area with a T mainspring. The T would be coming out of another groove here, and there's no T coming out. So usually you just put a screwdriver in here to remove the cap. I've got to make sure the screwdriver is not too big, that it will distort the cap. I had a problem a while back of the cap being slightly distorted when I tried to remove the cap from the mainspring. So I should be able to get under there and remove this cap. Sometimes I've got to get a little bit closer, like this. There we go. There's the cap, and then I just take my screwdriver, slide it along the edge here, and that should remove it. And there it is. And there's the mainspring, like this. So we'll take another picture of the mainspring so I know the direction the mainspring is going. And let me just zoom in on this guy here and take a picture. So this thing is going clockwise as I look at it. And I'm lucky to have long fingernails and long thumbnails, because it's very useful in watch repair, because you can just reach in and grab the mainspring. So I'm going to try to show you how I walk this out on camera. Okay, I move the cap out of the way, and let me just see if I can do this without messing it up. So I can take out the arbor first, or I can leave it in. If I leave it in, the arbor may try to go for a ride, which you don't want, right? So if I take the arbor out, just put a screwdriver in and twist it like that, and that should free up the arbor. And there we go. It just jumped out, and there's the mainspring arbor. It didn't jump very far. It didn't know how to jump. It's not a Mexican jumping arbor. I'll just put that aside, and now I can get my big long guitar fingernail underneath this mainspring like that. And on the other side, I've got a long thumbnail. I know they're disgusting looking, but I can put them inside like this, like that. And then I can round that up like so. And then I walk it out. So I just do this. And I do have to cut this thumbnail. That is a bit disgusting and long, but I'm telling you, it's so handy for watch repair. The problem is when people see it, they go, ooh, yuck, yuck. Let me see if I can zoom this a little bit better. That's a bit better there. That way when I walk it out, it doesn't look so crazy. So I just have to keep pressure on both sides as I walk it left and right. And you can comment on the disgustingness of my thumbnails, but I will cut them today. But I'm telling you, they're very handy for watch repair. So there we go, we're at the end. And if you look at this, the way this has been configured, the spring here, it's one of these jobby doohickeys. So as you can see, there's a piece of mainspring that's tucked in here. I've made one of these before. There's a piece of mainspring that's tucked into this part that's looped over, right? So they loop that over and tuck this part in. I need to squeeze that down a bit because it obviously is not holding this spring hard enough, so I'll do that in a second. And then you will look inside the barrel of this watch, and you'll see that on the edge of the barrel, right there, you can see where the hook is. So that is just a piece of metal, and it's hooked on the inside of the barrel. So this is a lot easier to put in than a T mainspring. A T mainspring would have a T on both sides and a groove in there, where that groove would be sticking through on this side and sticking through on the other side of the barrel cap, which is a lot more difficult to put that mainspring in. This one here is going to be easy to put in. The only problem I have with this mainspring is that it's almost set. So if I look at this mainspring here and I put the size of the movement, if it's bigger than the movement, you're good, I was told. And oh man, that's close. That's very close to being set. You guys can give me your interpretation of whether that's going to be set or not, because if it's set, I'll have to order a new mainspring for this watch. And that's to give it adequate power, and it might be set. So sometimes with these watches though, I can actually put the mainspring in and I can test it with the watch and see how much amplitude I get out of the balance and see whether this is set enough, okay, because these are pretty powerful mainsprings. And if it is set enough, I can replace it quite easily, not a problem. So that's it for now. JD, again, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like. I really appreciate your support. Again, this video is probably a bit longer than you thought it would be today, but I think it's a pretty important video on stripping down a pocket watch. Again, if you need me to do work on your pocket watch, send me an email at jdwatchservice@gmail.com, jdwatchservice@gmail.com. The email's actually on the last screen of the video, but I should put it in the front screen too, so you can get a hold of me. So I do watch repair work for people. This is a hobby. I don't make a living at it because I don't make really don't make a lot of money on this at all. You'd make tons of money changing watch batteries and doing watch stuff and stuff, but I'm not interested in that at all. So I love doing pocket watch work. That's my expertise, although I've done recently some watches. I can do watches as well, but I do love pocket watch work. Got to get this out of the way so you can see my eyeball. Look at that. What a wonderful eyeball you got there, buddy. Anyway, so this was an interesting watch to work on. And I hope you learned something from this today, but we're going to see if we can repivot the balance on this watch and get this running again. So thanks a lot again for subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time.